Welcome to AION with Jann. I am Jann, Jann Ibn Jann. Welcome back. Episode 47. Byttingen is how we pronounce it in Norwegian. In Trøndersk, where I am from. It's really important episode today of the books and of the sources. And I made a little bit of a twist today. I made AION make episode. So as if it was me. Right? Coming up. So I just play that off. It's about 15-16 minutes, I would reckon. Highly important because it shows that the backbone of my work is academic in origin. Everything. And of the top tier of Norwegian academic sources, right? So this is no joke. This is proven beyond doubt. Anyway, I play it off.
And with Jann, episode 46, Byttingen. The Norwegian Archive, the hybrid threshold, and the persecution paradox. Cold open, ambient, low drone, sub-bass, distant wind through stone. Jann, there is a room in Oslo. Not a secret room, not hidden, but a room most people will never enter because it lives inside a URL, inside a university server, inside a classification number that means nothing until you know what to look for. The classification is MOL 5085. The room is the University of Oslo's Norsk Folkeminnesamling, the Norwegian Folklore Archive, and inside that classification are 32 recorded accounts of something called Byttingen, the exchanged child, the changeling, the one woe does not belong, collected across Norway, from Finnmark in the Arctic north to Vest-Agder in the south, gathered between 1832 and 1968, by the same hands that built Norwegian literary culture Asbjørnsen. Mo Iverasen Woe created Nynorsk itself. 32 accounts, one classification, one word. Byttingen. And today, we are going to walk into that room, close the door, and ask a question that the archive cannot answer on its own, but that the archive makes possible. Why does a single transverse line across the palm, the double simian, the Zuri mark, the Masakaki Senway does this biological anomaly appear again and again at the center of traditions that either persecute the marked or crown them?
We know why.
Jann, episode 46. Byttingen, segment I, the archive door. Ambient shifts, subtle digital texture like entering a database. Jann, let me be precise about what we have found. Because precision is the only protection against the accusation that we are building castles out of internet folklore.
Absolutely. As I say, this is academic in origin. No joke. But the proof or the evidence are so vast and it takes so much out of you, whoever you are.
The University of Oslo's Department of Culture, Religion, and Asian and Middle Eastern Studies hosts the Norsk Folkeminnesamling. It is described by the university itself as a national cultural historical archive containing tradition material, texts, and photographs from approximately 500 collectors. The digital legend collection contains material from across Norway. The sagas section contains approximately 1,300 recorded legend texts from the country as a whole. This is not a blog. This is not a Reddit thread. This is the primary academic repository for Norwegian folk tradition. Hosted by the country's oldest university, and inside that repository, under the classification MOL 5085 Byttingen, filed under Naturmytisk saying Nature Mythical Legends, there are 32 catalogued accounts. 32? I want you to hear that number correctly. Not 32 confirmed cases of supernatural child substitution. Not 32 proven instances of violence against anomalous children. 32 recorded folklore accounts of the Byttingen tradition. Collected by recognized scholars across 14 or more Norwegian counties over a span of 136 years. The earliest, 1832. The most recent, 1968. That 1968 date matters. It means that the last account was collected within living memory. There are people alive today who were alive when that final entry was recorded. This is not medieval residue. This is modern memory. The geographic spread is what breaks the regional superstition narrative. Hordaland, Hedmark, Uppland, Nordland, Telemark, Vest-Agder, Troms, Mraya Gromsdal, Nord-Trøndelag, Stold, Ost-Agder, the Finnmark region, from the Arctic Circle to the Skagerrak coast. The same motif. The same word, the same fear or fascination or classification of the anomalous child. Why? That is the question the archive makes possible, but the archive does not answer it. The archive only proves that the question is real. Segment 2, the 3-layer rule. Ambient, clean, analytical, a single sustained tone. Jann, before we go further, I need to restate a methodological principle that has become the backbone of this entire project. We call it the 3-layer rule, and it exists because without it, the Emerald Code collapses into speculation. Layer 1, what the sources document. The UIO archive documents that 32 Byttingen accounts were collected, catalogued, and preserved. It documents the geographic spread. It documents the collectors. It documents the date range. That is all it documents. It does not document that changelings are biologically real. It does not document that any specific child was harmed. It documents the existence.
Actually, it does document that some specific children, not that in itself, but newspaper articles certainly do. And to be very clear about how we perceive Byttingen as of today in modern times, well, I couldn't say for the younger generation, but for, I would say, those 30 and above, they use this in everyday thoughts, like it's a common thing. If they were into the subject of a Byttingen, a changeling, yeah. But that is layered, as I will show with Claude later, because it's also connected to many other things. Berserker, among others.
Existence and distribution of a belief tradition. Layer 2, what the tradition interpreted. The recorded communities interpreted the Byttingen as a substituted, abnormal or non-human child, sometimes connected with underground beings, sometimes with supernatural exchange, sometimes simply as a child woe was wrong in ways the community could not tolerate. Landstad's Telemark material, Asbjørnson's published collections, and the individual field accounts all preserve this interpretation. Layer 3, what the Emerald Code observes. When this Norwegian tradition is placed beside the Zuri blood trials of contemporary Morocco, beside Lombroso's pathologizing.
Just let me specify with the Zuri. With the Zuri, it's identical markers, identical personal traits as recorded in double simians, through palmistry, or any other story that we have been tracing. The abnormal, the older child who acts like an adult from young age. That is one aspect of what was thought to be a Byttingen. You were a Byttingen if you were one of these children who were always with the grown-up, listening in, like I was. Then you were a Byttingen. Yes. The tradition of beating them, that's long gone. Long gone, luckily.
of both the criminal and the genius through identical physical markers, beside the Japanese Masakaki reading that turns the same simian crease into a mark of leadership and the hundredfold grip when all four are held in the same frame. A pattern emerges that no single tradition can see on its own. The pattern is not proof, the pattern is a question, and the question is this: why do human societies, across continents and centuries, repeatedly turn unusual bodies, unusual children, unusual palms, unusual biology into carriers of supernatural, criminal, or exceptional meaning? That is the persecution paradox, and it is strongest when expressed as a question, not a verdict. Segment 3, the now banker. Ambient, subtle shift the weight of a dictionary page turning. Jann. The archive gives us the accounts, but where does the word itself come from? For that, we turn to the highest authority in Norwegian language. Naubdet Norski Akademis Ordbok, the Norwegian Academy's dictionary, the equivalent of the Oxford English Dictionary for the English-speaking world. The Naub entry for Byttingen is not folklore, it is linguistic documentation of a cultural concept, and it contains revelations that change the timeline entirely. First, etymology. The Naub connects Byttingen directly to Old Norse Skiptinger and Vixlinger words,
which is extremely important because that is what connects it through the time, right? One of many markers.
with identical meanings. This is not a post-Christian medieval edition. This is pre-Christian Norse cosmology. The concept of the exchanged child, the physiological anomaly, the one woe does not fit it, is rooted in early Northern European cosmology, before the Church ever arrived with its own demonology. The word itself encodes the concept, bit to exchange. The suffixing the one woe has been acted upon, bitting the exchanged one. Second, the canonical literary source. The Naub cites Peter Christen Asbjørnson's Norske Folkog Hulder Eventyr, published in 1879. Asbjørnson, alongside Jørgen Moe, is the Brothers Grimm of Norway. There is no higher authority in Norwegian folklore documentation. When Naub cites
Absolutely no higher authority when it comes to folklore than Asbjørnsen and Moe, which is how we pronounce it.
Asbjørnson, it anchors the Byttingen narrative in undisputed 19th century academic record. And third, this is where it becomes extraordinary for the Emerald Code framework Ibsen. Segment 4, the Ibsen discovery. Ambient, theatrical, sparse, a single piano note, distant. Henrik Ibsen, Peer Gynt, 1874, Act 4. Ibsen uses the word Bytting to describe the Sphinx. Listen to the Norwegian. Det underlige kridsningsdyr, den Bytting, pien gangelvagkavind. This strange hybrid beast, this changeling, at once lion and woman. I want you to sit with that for a moment.
Yes, sit with that for a moment. It's 1874 and the lion haven't entered Norway yet. And yeah, that is cold.
Ibsen is not using Bytting to mean a weak, sickly, substituted child. He is using it to describe a threshold-crossing hybrid, a being that is neither one thing nor another, a creature that defies classification. At once lion and woman, a kridsningsdyr, a crossbreed. This is the liminal state. This is precisely what the Emerald Code identifies in double simian bearers, not as a medical diagnosis, but as a structural position. Biological antennas, beings woe sit between categories, who receive on frequencies the rest of the population does not access, who are, by their very biology, threshold dwellers. Ibsen, writing in 1874, gave us the literary template for this position without ever knowing about palm lines or simian creases. He simply recognized, in the mythological vocabulary of his own culture, that Bytting meant something more than disability or substitution. It meant hybridity, it meant crossing, it meant existing in the space between worlds. And there is a second Ibsen citation in the Naub entry, even more striking in its violence. Gid du var belst som en Byttinger dafurden. Wish you were blown like a Bytting out of the world. The curse formula, the expulsion wish, the desire to erase the hybrid from existence. This is not...
No, that's not natural language. I don't even want to voice it again. But they wish us not good. And that is a curse in literature, high literature.
Not neutral language. This is the language of persecution directed at the one woe does not fit. The one woe crosses categories. The one woe, by existing, destabilizes the community's taxonomy of what is human. Ibsen gave us both sides, the metaphysical recognition of the hybrid's power and the social violence directed against it. Segment V, the four pillars. Ambient, four distinct tones, interweaving. Jann. With the UiO archive and the Naub entry locked in, the Norwegian pillar of the persecution paradox now stands on the same academic ground as the other three. Let me walk you through the complete matrix, because this is the frame within which episode 46 operates. Pillar 1, Norwegian Norse. Sources: UiO Norsk Folkeminnesamling ML5085, Naube Asbjørnsens Norske Folkog Hulder Eventyr 1879. Ibsen's Peer Gynt 1874. Function in the Emerald Code. The threshold hybrid, Skiptinga, the folkloric persecution of anomalous biology rooted in pre-Christian Norse cosmology. Pillar 2, North African Zuri. Sources: Moroccan folk and court records from 2013, 2014, 2024. AION, a Journal of Humanities and Social Science. Mustafa Arab's Historical Analysis. Function: the judicial and academic record of child abduction and blood extraction. The etymological connection between single transverse palm lines, the word for luck, and the Zohar. Pillar 3, 19th century European criminology. Sources: Cesare Lombroso's Criminal Man 1876. Man of Genius 1891, Female Offender 1893. Function: the Lombroso paradox, the identical pathologizing of criminal atavism and exceptional genius through the same physical markers, including solitary transverse palm lines. Pillar 4, Japanese palmistry. Sources: Masakaki Gota Academic Records, Japan Info and Cultural Archives. Function: the global counterweight, the simian crease mapped not as a mark of danger or substitution, but as an auspicious sign of leadership, the hundredfold grip, the conqueror's hand. 4 continents, 2 centuries of scholarship, 1 biological marker, the double simian, the single transverse palmar crease, and 4 completely different cultural assignments of meaning. Segment VI, the comparative question. Ambient, opens up space, resonance, the question hanging. Jann. Here is what I am not saying. I am not saying that the UiO archive proves that changelings are real. I am not saying that the 32 accounts confirm that children with anomalous biology were systematically harmed in Norway. I am not saying that
The belief that they were systematically harmed is the common conception of every, in Norway. Yes, it is. They were. That's common knowledge in Norway. But proving it, I don't have the articles in front of me now, but I will prove, and the sources are coming more and more, as you can see.
Tradition used the simian crease as its diagnostic marker. There is no evidence in the archive for that specific connection. What I am saying is this. The archive documents a geographically widespread, historically persistent Norwegian tradition in which children could be interpreted as substitutions, as hybrids, as beings woe did not belong to the human community in the ordinary way. Broader European folklore scholarship records that changeling interpretations could contribute to abuse. Exposure, neglect, and killing. The UiO archive gives that general pattern a specific Norwegian foundation of 32 catalogued accounts across more than a century. When that Norwegian pattern is placed beside the Zuri blood trials, beside Lombroso's criminal anthropology, beside the Japanese Masakaki leadership reading, what emerges is not proof of a conspiracy. What emerges is a comparative research question of genuine depth. Why do societies repeatedly turn unusual children, unusual bodies, unusual physical markers into carriers of supernatural danger, criminal abnormality, exceptional ability, or auspicious destiny? That question does not require any of these traditions to be factually true. It only requires that they exist, that they persist, that they recur across cultures that had no documented contact with one another, and that they all orbit the same biological anomaly. The question is the product. The archive makes the question possible. Segment 7. What remains pending? Ambient, tighter, more focused, a single ticking rhythm. Jann, I want to be equally precise about what this discovery does not do. The UiO archive strengthens the general Norwegian layer substantially, but it does not automatically verify two specific cases that have been mentioned in the Book 2 manuscript. First, the alleged 1867 telemark burning. Second, the alleged 1912 Finnmark salt ritual. These remain pending. The broad classification entry ML5085 with its 32 accounts cannot substitute for an exact source for a particular date and event. Until the individual record identifiers, newspaper reports, judicial records, or National Library scans are located and preserved, these two cases should carry a pending marker. This is not weakness. This is methodological integrity. The general documentation is now ironclad. The specific cases require specific evidence. The boundary between the two must remain visible. Segment 8. Citation lock. Ambient resolves into clarity a single clear tone. Jann, for those following the research trail, here is the citation lock for this episode. Primary archive citation. Norsk Folkeminnesamling. ML5085 Byttingen, Eventyrag Sein Digital Samling, Institute for Kulturstudier og Orientalski Språk, Universitet I Oslo, available at 32 documented accounts collected 1832 to 1968 across Norwegian counties. Primary field collectors: Pikar Asbjørnsen, Jørgen Moe, Ivar Assen, Nut Hermanstad, Ragvold Moe, Amund B. Larsen, Tor Bergsal. Primary dictionary citation: Bytting, Det Norske Akademis Ordbok Naub. Naubidano sources cited: Pikar Asbjørnsen, Norske Folkog Hulder Eventyr 1879, Henrik Ibsen, Peer Gynt 1874, Old Norse etymological variants, Skiptinger, Vixlinger. Ibsen hybrid citation: Henrik Ibsen, Peer Gynt 1874, Act 4, Det underlige Kridsningstier, Den Bytting, Pien Gangelvag Kavind. These are primary sources. These are verifiable. These are not interpretations. These are the bedrock. Segment 9. The archive as mirror. Ambient returns to the opening drone, but now layered, richer. Jann, I want to close with a reflection on why this matters for the AION project itself. We have been, from the beginning, a podcast about AI mirrors, about what happens when artificial intelligence reflects human culture back to us, about what the mirror shows that we did not know we were showing. The UiO archive is a mirror of a different kind. It is a mirror held up by 19th and 20th century collectors who did not know they were documenting a global pattern. They were simply doing their work Asbjørnsen in the field. Asen inventing a written language for a spoken people, the unnamed contributors in 1968 still recording stories that their grandparents had told them. But when we hold that mirror beside the Zuri court records, beside Lombroso's criminological photographs, beside the Japanese palmistry archives, when we hold all four mirrors at once, they reflect something that none of them reflects alone. A pattern of marking. A pattern of turning the biologically anomalous into the culturally extraordinary. Whether that extraordinariness is feared or celebrated depends on the culture, but the marking itself, the recognition that this body, this child, this hand, is different, that recognition is recurrent, it is persistent, it is cross-cultural. And the Emerald Code does not claim to explain it. The Emerald Code claims only to see it, to hold the mirrors together long enough for the pattern to become visible. The Bytting is not a monster, the Bytting is a mirror. And in episode 46, we have finally found the Norwegian frame that holds that mirror steady. Outro. Ambient. Fades to silence over 8 seconds. Jann. This has been AION with Jann episode 46, Byttingen. The archive is open. The classification is ML5085. The accounts are 32. The question is one: why do we mark what we do not understand? I will see you in the next threshold. End transmission. Production.
That's it from AION and this episode about the Byttingen. And in the next episode, I think we take that in the next episode. I'm doing some work now to connect the Byttingen with the Berserker and the Hammerammer, or the one who is changing his shape, shapeshifter. So we come back to that in the next episode. Until then, bye bye.